breaking down the teams you're passionate about. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
80 points for Bam on his 40th free throw attempt. His 33rd make. His records now as well. For 81. For Kobe. Bam knocks it down. 31 of 38 from the line. He has 78. Tied with Wilt. He just passed Wilt for third all time. Wilt has 1 and 3, by the way, in scoring, so don't think we lost our minds.
Welcome into Scotty G and Friends, emphasis on the Friends. I'm Jay Catch, joined by the man that probably should be playing this song for us coming back in. It's Tim Lacombe, the coach. Timmy, what's up?
How are you, man? This is cool to hang with you for a couple hours.
Absolutely, and obviously big thanks to Scotty for covering for us. I liked your tweet earlier today that he's been reassigned to the Las Vegas area as he gets ready for the Mountain West Tournament. Utah State will be in action tomorrow in their quarterfinal game. They're obviously looking to cap a regular season Mountain West title with a conference tournament title. We'll see how that all plays out this weekend. But Timmy, this is a fun time of the year, I'm sure, for you, because you probably have some very fun memories of tournament runs. Is it different now being on the other side?
Oh yeah, I mean, but you know, the common theme is that excitement.
Yeah.
You know, it is so cool to be a part of it, whether you're in it.
Sure.
Or watching it, and yeah, I'm one of those guys, at work that has my screen minimized. And today, my boss I was watching LSU Kentucky, and he walked around. He's like, "Everything good? You need?" No, I'm great. Just catching up on a little ball screen coverage.
There you go. Well, as you heard coming back in, the NBA kind of took over the headlines last night. Bam Adebayo becoming the second highest single-game scorer in NBA history, 83 points for the Miami Heat. And I heard a comment earlier today, I want to say it might have been on Sirius XM or something like that, where somebody said that they would have probably named, I know what it was. It was a podcast I was listening to. It said, if you were to ask me which player was going to pass Kobe, maybe not necessarily get to the Wilt level of 100 points, but to pass that Kobe Bryant number of 81 points, he said I probably would have guessed 200 different NBA players, and not a one of them would have been Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I actually couldn't believe it when I saw, the little thing come up on my
the scoreboard, hey,
come up on my phone. So I went to the box score, and I'll tell you what, the box score is even more staggering. Like when you look at, he shot 43 free throws.
Yeah, so these are, by the way,
43.
It's the second most points in a game in NBA history. The 43 free throws attempted is an NBA record.
Yeah, of course it is.
And the 36 made are also an NBA record.
Well, and then the other part of it, he shot 43. The team shot 50.
Yeah.
And the Wizards shot 29 as a team. So try that one on for size. That's an anomaly in that box score. The rebounds all kind of look similar, assists similar, turnovers similar. Outlier, 83 points on, what did he take? 43 shots. I think he took 43 because it was the same as his free throws. So he really needed to ice his elbow.
Yeah.
But it is incredible. And the part I like about it, and I think it relates to where the Jazz are right now, is he came into the league, he did not shoot outside 3 feet.
It's true.
And you look at it, I looked through his career last night, and it's been 3 years. He started shooting at more than 1 3 a game in 22, 23. And last night he made 7, but he took 22.
Yeah, so he scored 31 points in the opening quarter, had 43 at halftime. His previous career high, do you know what his previous career high in points was in an individual game was?
I'll bet it was in the 30s.
41.
Okay.
He passed it by halftime. And then at that point, all bets were off. Now, I think it was Derek Favors, the former Jazz man, who said, hey, it was awesome to watch the first quarter, the second quarter. He said, I think his tweet was, final 5 minutes may have redefined basketball culture because there were some hijinks going on down the stretch here, Timmy.
Well, the only thing I would say is I imagine Wilt had him too.
Well,
I mean, you're chasing 100, there's hijinks. Somebody gets to that number, the game's kind of on its own.
Well, and that's the thing is there is videos, like sparse video of the Wilt Chamberlain 100 points because there's never been a full game film ever recovered of the performance. There's only the famous picture of him holding up the 100. But people said in that game that his teammates were like purposely fouling people down the stretch just to get the ball back into his hands to chase the century.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But the interesting part, no video. There'll always be video of this one.
Yes.
Not a ton of it.
Yeah.
And we started with a whole lot of love. It was a whole lot of bam last night.
Nice pull. Well done.
And the way I want to loop it back to the Jazz is, like, guys get better over their career.
Mm-hmm.
And, these formative years especially, we watched it with Keontae. There were people ready to write him off last year, saying he's just not efficient, he doesn't play hard enough. Everything clicked for him in the offseason, and now you see a totally different player. So give these guys a little time to grow, but a cool story about Bam. I don't know. I think basketball culture's been set back for some time. So I don't know how you start splitting hairs when you get to that.
Well, okay, and you talk about Keontae George, and I'll freely admit, I'll raise my hand. I was in sell Keontae mode at the end of last season. I was like, you know what? He seems like he's a little bit of a chucker. He doesn't really play defense. Now, there are still some concerns with his overall defensive ability, I think. But there was the conversation, I think it was Will Hardy talking about it. At the end of last season, he sat down with Jazz Brass, Hardy, and others, and apparently it was I call it come to Jesus meeting, essentially, and laid out X, Y, Z. Here's what you need to improve right down the line. And they've talked about the fact that Keontae just went to work in the offseason. He worked on his defensive ability. He obviously honed his shot and everything. And I think Christian's still here. He and I have had multiple, Christian Esparza, who produces Jake and Ben, he and I have had multiple conversations about the fact that our opinions of Keontae George have completely flipped this year because he has asserted himself as a true cornerstone type piece that the Jazz need to keep around. Whereas, as I said, the end of last season, I was like, yeah, you can move off of it.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why these contracts are the length that they are, because you really need to see them in so many different things. But I'm with you. I think his biggest move in the offseason was going on that trip with his teammates.
Sure.
And the cohesion that created, because what you see now, or you see a bunch of guys out of the lineup and a bunch of young guys playing and getting better. Cody Williams, 7 assists for the second straight game.
Sure.
But the exciting part about that is there's major reinforcements. I said it a couple times yesterday or day before when I was on, but it's really true. It's staggering to think Ace Bailey is a fourth option in the NBA with a dominant center that may be as good as anybody protecting the rim on the defensive end. So, man, exciting stuff, but everything takes time. And, Bam's later in his career now, but he'll never forget last night.
Well, that's the thing about it. You mentioned the fact that Bam, when he came into the league, didn't shoot outside of 3 feet. He's one of those guys, and I always will think of like Brook Lopez, for example.
Reinvent yourself.
Because Brook, when he came into the league, he was the traditional back-to-the-basket big man, and as the NBA kind of morphed during his career, he morphed with it. Because I think I'd have to go back and look at it. If you look at his career arc, there is like maybe 4 or 5, maybe 10 3-point attempts through the first multiple seasons of his career. And then I think with Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken, you see him go all of a sudden, it's like 100 attempts from 3. And he starts to become a marksman from the 3-point line. The same thing with Bam Adebayo. Big men have to be able to shoot. And Tim, you watch this as close as anybody. You do all these Jazz broadcasts with Jake Scott, and you guys do a great job. And obviously you have a keen basketball mind because of all your coaching. But
I wouldn't go that far.
You don't last at the Division I level like you did if you don't have that type of a mind.
I had really good people around me that insulated me.
Okay, well, there you go. But
surround yourself with greatness.
Yes, that is very good.
Shout out Chad Lewis.
Yes, absolutely. Chad would know as well. But the thing is, in this day and age, especially in the NBA, everybody has to be a threat to shoot on the court. Maybe outside of your big man. I know that Rudy Gobert for the Utah Jazz for years may not have been an outside threat, but he was still a threat in different ways. But you have to have people who can just pull from almost anywhere on the court anymore.
Well, so I'm going to use the stupid court that they used in the Big 12 as an example.
Okay.
But imagine that, just in the half court, and imagine each of those spots, they're obviously lit up, right? Yeah. So in a game, you want to have, just like in football, you want to have receivers that can stretch the field. There are guys that can run really fast and don't get the ball thrown to them a ton, but they're doing their job because they're stretching that defense vertically.
Yep.
In basketball, it's the same. And if that floor were to light up, a game where Rudy Gobert's in the game, right, and Rudy's standing at the top of that whole area is dead.
Sure.
They turn the light off from the 3-point line and beyond all the way to the restricted arc. And so what that allows a defense to do is play rover. Yeah. So Rudy's guy doesn't have to be responsible for him in those areas, so he can get over into gaps and places he shouldn't be. And to your point, the modern game now, if you have shooters at all 5 spots and they can't cheat, you've got a real offensive juggernaut. And guess what? I think that's what the Jazz will look like.
Well, and that's the hope, because they bring in Jaren Jackson, obviously, and Walker Kessler, I think, started to flash a little bit of the ability to shoot from outside. And while you may not necessarily always expect him to be the guy who's going to just pull and shoot it every time, the fact that he's a threat to do that,
that's
Tim,
the point.
You need to, and that's going to have teams in their scouting report. Okay, any one of these guys can shoot at any given time. So guess what? All 5 guys are engaged at every single point in the shot clock, and it just makes you mentioned that much more of a threat offensively.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, this year Bam's shooting 32.9% from 3. So,
okay.
A little below league average,
Sure.
but good enough and takes enough that teams have to respect his space. So if that space then is, I was talking about with Gobert, instead of all the way to the restricted arc, they may be able to cheat to the free throw line. But now you've cut down that space in behind that you don't have to worry about now. And, that space, behind, you're going to meet him before that. But basically on a catch, you're just going to be able to be there. And that's what that requires. So again, you're trying to tweak defensive spacing.
Okay, so I've got to ask the inevitable question, because we had a debate about this on DJ and Peak about the Bam Adebayo performance. The fact that he shot that many free throws, does that in your mind in some way, like, not invalidate it, but make what Kobe did and Wilt did maybe stand out even more, the fact that they didn't have to do it completely from the free throw line?
Oh, yeah, for sure. In the game, I mean, you get into officiating, and it's a night-by-night thing. That's the hard part. There's no standardization. I would love it if they could create AI, that could just read a foul and call it, but I don't think it'll ever get to that point. So you're going to have human error. You're going to have officials that are tired, ornery, cranky. Somebody says something to them, and all of a sudden you've got a foul fest on your hands. And then there's other nights where the game will be like a roller derby, and they're just playing on, So that's the hard part about the NBA, and it's hard to critique whether he needed those or not. The bottom line is the officiating is inconsistent. So I say, hey, you get 83 points in a game. I don't care how you got them. You got 83.
And seeing that, I think that's what kind of the consensus we came to with David and Patrick was like, okay, yeah, he set a record for free throws attempted, free throws made, obviously, and his teammates they knew what was going on. And I think the Wizards, they also knew what was going on. They just were so inept. I think, what did they say? The 29th rated defense. So they're not capable of really slowing somebody down, it looks like. But that was the thing, is that he goes out there and he has a memorable night that will always be on the record books here, Tim. I don't know if he'll ever recreate it. He never had a 50-point game before this. Who knows if Bam ever goes back above the half-a-century mark? Well,
somebody made the comment that before Steph retires, they need to have a game where he wants to shoot 35 threes and just see what happens. There will be, because there's always now that's set out there as the modern mark, right? Wilt's 100 probably, people are thinking I could never get there, but there's guys that have gotten 60 and 60 plus before. So, there'll be a quest now for 83.
Well, and okay, that brings me to think about Kobe Bryant's final game. We played against the Utah Jazz. It was 2016. Yeah, I'm just pulling it up right here. He scored 60 points in that game, but I think that's kind of to your point of, because in that game nobody was shooting. They're like, nope,
yeah, right.
Here's the ball, Kobe. You do your thing. I don't know how many shots ended up being. I have to pull it up here. Let's see. But that, I think, to your point, maybe he does at some point, Steph, as he gets towards the very end, one of those games, his teammates are like, all right, Steph, chuck it up.
Well, it depends on when the end is. He probably couldn't do it at 54.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he needs to do it now.
Maybe.
I can promise you at 55, because I have actual knowledge, data points, you don't move as well as you used to.
So he had Kobe Bryant had 50 field goal attempts in that final game. Scored 60 points on him. 22 of 50, 6 of 21 from 3.
Yeah, I mean, just bottom line, just historic performances you'll never forget. And man, there was another one of those last night in basketball, and a little closer to home. Our guy AJ, how about that?
Yeah.
40 points last night, and looked every bit the part of a number 1 draft pick.
Okay, so here's my question for you on that front. Did he, to quote Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, when he saw that Jaden Bradley was named Big 12 Player of the Year, did he quote, "I took that personally," unquote, and went out there and put on that performance?
Well, and I think the kid's really mature. So
Because he said after the game, he said, "I probably should have won some more games if I wanted to have that award."
exactly. So I loved that, but also BYU playing a little different offensively in the last couple of games. The ball movement was awful. I mean, they did. You looked at the assist numbers, and they didn't break. I mean, they didn't get to double-digit assists 3 straight games.
Yep.
And this team, like, the bottom line is now for sure AJ's a magnet. He's a defensive magnet. And so when he catches the ball, teams have to do something. And BYU now really can play offense off of that. And it's really triggered the ability for the ball to move. Not just one time, but how many, like the play yesterday where all the way around the horn
Yeah.
to Kostic.
Yep, it was
Kostic,
moving.
and he hit
Yeah.
it, right? Hit
Yeah.
the 3 on the left wing. So they found something. They found their groove. AJ definitely has motivation, and I think he sees that stuff. I think he's respectful, but that drives people.
Yeah.
And then, he went in and just a historic performance. I couldn't believe, how easy it came to him last night, but he just seemed to make the right reads.
Well, that's kind of been the hallmark of his time at BYU is he's always been a guy that he will make the right reads. My thing is I've watched enough of those games now with him is he'll make right reads, he'll kick it to somebody, and they'll brick it. And I always wondered at some point in the back of his mind, he's like, all right, are they actually going to make this shot? And to your point, last night, guys like Alexi Kostic made shots. I also thought that Hadim Boop had some moments in that game. The balance, I know that's all a relative term when a guy scores 40 in a game, but the balance that BYU got in that game stood out compared to, as you mentioned, the previous games. I think it was 9 assists on the 31 made field goals in the regular season finale against Texas Tech. Because to your point, the assist to made field goal number has just been completely out of whack for a team that you would think could be better in terms of sharing the basketball. And I think this is a BYU team that not even a week ago, some of us thought, are they going to lose out here? Are they going to go, they're going to lose, some thought maybe they lose to Texas Tech. They lose to Kansas State or whoever they played in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, and they go one and done in the tournament. Well, I think that now that they've bounced back with a win over Texas Tech, doing that on senior night, the way that they thrashed Kansas State last night, now obviously getting ready for West Virginia this evening, I think there is a little more confidence this team is not maybe as broken as some of us thought they might be.
Well, I got to give a ton of credit to KY because this is 2 years in a row. I mean, last year the team was on the very edge of a cliff.
They were.
Going through the catching stuff, and he was not the right guy at that right time to be out there on the floor. They needed more Dawson Baker, needed more other guys, and they needed Mag out there guarding the way he guarded. And it's hard as a coach because you've put a ton into the recruitment, and you pull a kid out of the lineup, it's going to go south. So you got to really know. But I felt like last year when they made that move and weathered the storm, and then got to Sweet 16.
Yeah,
I could see them doing the same thing here, man.
You think they're capable?
I think. Well, it's all like again. I've said March is about momentum and matchups, but certainly it's capable because if they just continued to play stagnant, and I felt like they were very stagnant. It was a Rob Wright ball screen to the right nearly every time, throwback to AJ.
Sounds about right.
And, it's funny you say, AJ, worried guys are going to brick him. I mean, he bricks his share of perimeter shots too.
Last night was kind of stood out because he was 15 of 21 last night. You mentioned the fact that it came easy. That was actually the thing is he actually was making his outside shots because he has struggled from the perimeter.
Right, that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think as a team, they've gotten to the point where, hey, we're going to all do this together.
Yeah.
And this isn't going to just be Rob and AJ figuring out how they can get a shot. We're going to use everybody. And I think Cade has come more physical since Texas Tech. He's way more physical and way more in the presence of that. So I think it's exciting to see what they can do. They'll win today.
You think so? Okay.
They'll win today.
Then they obviously would match up with Houston then if they were to get through that. And I always thought it'd be hard-pressed to win 5 games in 5 days to hoist a Big 12 tournament title. But I think it's more about, building, as you mentioned, momentum heading into what obviously is the big goal, the big dance next week.
Well, they'll win today, and then they'll lose to Houston.
And then obviously,
regardless, I just think Houston's. I think they'll gobble them up.
Well, Houston's had BYU's number ever since they both entered the league.
You just can't get any space against them, and shots are way more contested. It's more physical.
Yeah, well, that's just the hallmark of what Houston does. All right, we will hit a break here. We'll come back on the other side. Big news with the Utah Mammoth as they have locked down yet another one of their talents, Nick Schmaltz, inking a long-term pact with the team. They're going to have a press conference coming up at 2 o'clock for that. But ahead of that, our good friend Cole Bagley is going to join us next to talk about what the signing of Nick Schmaltz means for the future of the Mammoth, kind of where things stand right now as they come off a road trip, which all things considered pretty strong, but obviously a pretty poor finish to it last night in Minnesota. We'll get to that next as we continue on right here on Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Believe it or not, this guy actually has friends. Nice. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back in, Scotty G and Friends. I would call myself an acquaintance at this point. If I was a friend, he'd text me back after at least an hour, but it goes 3 or 4 days.
Tim, that actually makes you a friend when he doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that makes me feel better.
If he actually responded to you, you might think, God, maybe he doesn't like me.
You know you're close to him when he ignores that text for a while.
Hey, I'm a little bit of a lightning rod. We're filling in today, we being myself, Tim Lacombe. You hear me way too much. 82 games of Jazz, pre-half and post. Get to do it with my buddy Jake Scott, who we heard earlier. Mm-hmm. And today, a guy I've known for a long, long time. How did we even meet the first time?
Probably when some BYU practice I happened to stumble into.
Yeah, probably. But I've known Jake forever. Jake Hatch, obviously the producer of the morning show and does a great job covering BYU as well.
Yep.
We've got time here. So we're actually going to jump in and talk a little hockey. Mm-hmm. We've got the Mammoth, who are still number one in the wild card. You mentioned it, had a good road trip, but a little, I don't know, oil leak late. Yeah. But that happens on the road. And we got the best person in radio to talk about it. He's our Mammoth insider, Cole Bagley. Cole, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Cole, big news today. Nick Schmaltz inking an 8-year extension, $64 million, so it's just an average of $8 million a year. Overall reaction to them keeping him away from the free agent market?
Yeah, it's a good move. I know that some people are looking at that and going, man, 8 years? He's 30. He's going to be 38 by the end of that contract. But, when you break it down and you look at it, it's a good deal for a couple reasons. First of all, you had to bring Schmaltz back, not just because of his production this season and what he means, to that top line. He and Clayton Keller just have an undeniable chemistry that you have to continue to bank on. But, for Utah, they're in an interesting phase in terms of their rebuild, right? They're trying to emerge. They're trying to win games. They're trying to get into the playoffs, but they're not quite ready to start winning. And they still have quite a few prospects they're trying to buy time for. Well, bringing back Schmaltz, accomplishes that, right? Because if Utah was to let him walk, you would have to rely on some of those prospects probably earlier than you should, and then you're taking a step back in the rebuild, a year from now. Instead of continuing to make the playoffs and continuing to grow and gain experience, you'd be taking a step back. And so to bring back Schmaltz was really important for this team. And again, going back to the length of the contract, in order to keep that AAV down to $8 million as opposed to higher than that, they had to extend the contract. They had to go a little bit longer, which Utah is fine to do because they have a healthy cap space. They have the longevity to go ahead and do it. And, if need be, there's some ways for Utah to kind of get out of that contract and to move it at a later date. He's going to have a no-move clause lifted after year 3, which means if there was an expansion or something like that, he could be selected in an expansion draft. And then when you look at how they've kind of spread out the money, he's actually only making $6 million AAV over the last 2 years, which would put him 6 years down the road, 35, 36. Maybe at that point, Utah is looking to change things up, do something different. Again, this is only if they feel the need to move on from him, but those outlets are there in case they feel that way.
We talked about the Mammoth coming off the road, did a decent job out there, had a heartbreaker in Chicago, and with the late tripping call that caused the goal fairly early in overtime. And then really the Minnesota game, it just looked like the wheels came off, which happened. I mean, you played hockey, you know this whole thing, but any sport, you go out there, you go on the road, and anything's bound to happen. Mammoth 18-10 at home and have what looked like 2 winnable games here. Just your thoughts of how the Mammoth are playing currently.
Yeah, I think, like Coach Torney said after the game last night, if you told them going into that 5-game road trip that they were going to pick up 7 out of 10 possible points, they'd be ecstatic. Obviously, the way that it ended wasn't necessarily great, but to pick up a point against Chicago to make sure you're still getting something out of that game was a big deal. And then, the Minnesota one was just that was tough. That is probably more the result of just a tough break in terms of the schedule to get the best team on that road trip at the tail end on the second half of a back-to-back, and a team that could be prepped to make a cup run. I mean, they continued to buy at the deadline. They obviously made a big swing in acquiring Quinn Hughes about a month and a half ago from Vancouver, and so they have just really, really improved. Like I said, I think they're going to be a team that's going to push for a cup. I think it's either them or Colorado that are going to have probably the best odds to get it done. And Minnesota had yet to beat Utah in regulation in their existence. They were 1-5 against them, and I believe that one win came in overtime or a shootout last year. So they had lost 5 straight. They were hungry. They, on paper, that Minnesota is a better team. They've got 3 gold medalists from the United States on their team, 2 of the best defensemen in the world, and of course Matt Boldy. So yeah, they're still playing good hockey. They put themselves in the position they want to be. They're at the top of the wild card spot, and hey, a couple of the teams below them lost games yesterday as well. So really no harm, no foul. But the biggest thing is coming back for this short homestand, 2 games. You have to beat Chicago. You've lost 2 in a row. Well, you've actually lost 3 in a row against Chicago. So you have got to get the job done. You've got to pick up 2 points. And then, a point against Pittsburgh would obviously be really helpful with about 17 games remaining on their schedule.
Cole Bagley joining us, Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com. And Cole, you mentioned Chicago. What is it about the Blackhawks that is just for a bottom-dwelling team to have this hex over Utah? It's baffling to me.
I think it's less of what Chicago does and more of what Utah doesn't. Okay. In the 3 games that they've played Chicago this season, Utah has not been mentally prepared for any of those games. They haven't played their style of hockey, and the message over the last 2 losses from them has been, that's not who we are. That's not our brand. And if you watch the game in its entirety, there were flashes where it was very clear that Utah was the better team, especially over the last 3 minutes of the third period. Utah was buzzing because they were playing their style of hockey. But when they go away from that, that's when they get in trouble. And that's, honestly, that's what happened against Minnesota last night is they had a rough first period. And, Utah statistically is a team that gets better as the game goes on. They score more goals in the second and in the third than they score in the first. And so, first periods are important for Utah because that's how they kind of build around their game. They gather momentum. So not that they're necessarily going to blow teams out of the water in the first, but they have to come out with energy, with urgency, and with confidence. And when they're not doing that, and in addition, when they're taking, they took 3 penalties in the first period last night against Minnesota, it just sets them back and pushes them off their game. So I really wouldn't look too much into it. I think it's more of a consistency of kind of shooting themselves in the foot as opposed to just being a poor matchup against Chicago.
You talk about that style, the way they want to play. I guess 2 questions. What does that look like when it's going? And kind of give us a visual of what that looks like when they're playing the right style. And then secondly, what causes, I know in basketball, I coached forever, and, you have really dominant players and they put 2 on them and rotate behind it. I assume hockey, you just – you see more disruption, but what causes them to go away from the style after you explain it?
Yeah, so, when Utah's playing at their best, like I said, it's when they come out with confidence. It's when they come out with urgency, energy. And, really the biggest factor is when they're able to impose themselves physically on the other team. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily dominating, in terms of hits, but when they're playing hard on the forecheck, when they're punishing teams in their own zone, when they're relentless, when they're refusing to let teams break out, generating turnovers, winning battles in the dirty areas, in the corners, then they're able to, reload the puck. They're able to retrieve it, and they're able to then allow their skill and finesse to take over. When you look at their personnel, especially in the top six, guys like Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and, Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther, Krause, those guys are all very, technically sound. They can move the puck fast, and they can break down defenses when they're able to, retrieve the puck. And so, what you saw against Chicago, I think, was just more or less an inability or a lack of effort to do so. Whereas against Minnesota was imposing themselves physically against the Mammoth. They were trapping them in the defensive zone. They were moving the puck quickly, breaking out so that Utah couldn't retrieve those pucks and break down the Wild. So I'm not sure if that answers both questions.
Totally. 100%. Thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah, of course.
All right, Cole. So still awaiting the return of Mikhail Sergachev, because it sure seems like Mackenzie Weegar and him will kind of be the tandem on that, I guess, the one line on the blue line. But what's the status? What are you hearing on Sergachev?
Yeah, he just continues to remain day-to-day. We'll see kind of where he is tomorrow. He has been, skating some lines. I think he's been, trying to give it a go, but just hasn't fully felt 100% yet. So as far as I'm aware, it's nothing overly serious, but I think they're just trying to be careful to make sure it doesn't keep him out any longer. So, day-to-day, and, we'll just take it a day at a time from here on out. But we'll see. I think Mackenzie Weegar's been good in his first few games for Utah. He was excellent against Columbus. Wasn't quite as good over these last two games. But, he's still learning systems, right? Like, Utah plays a completely different game than Calgary. There's way more talent on this Utah roster. So, give him a couple weeks to really kind of settle in to, the style of the Mammoth.
Cole, you've seen a lot of coaches through your time, and I'm curious what makes Bear good. What makes guys respond to him? Yeah, I think
where Turney really makes an impact is his development of young players. He coached in the juniors for a long time. He's coached World Juniors with Team Canada. He's won gold medals, in those instances. And, when you look at how Utah has successfully rebuilt through the early years over these last 5 seasons, I think a lot of it goes back to how Tourney has been able to develop the Logan Cooleys and the Dylan Gunthers and, even, a guy like Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, who joined the team a little bit later. So, yeah, I think that, they respond to him because he's been here the whole time. He's been through the ups and downs. He's earned his stripes. He's, every single season that's gone by, Utah, and even, obviously dating back to Arizona, they've seen a jump in points. And right now, he's gotten the job done. It hasn't been pretty. It hasn't been the easiest path. There were points, especially earlier this year where, I think he was feeling the heat a little bit, but, he got the boys to respond. He's helped Utah discover their game. And, those young guys, those Coolies and Gunthers are looking like, not just the future of Utah, but the future of the NHL.
That's awesome. I'll tell you this. I heard him this summer, and I can call him Bear because he told me I could. I went up to say, "Hey, Coach, you could just call me Bear." It's all right, Bear. No, but I was really impressed with his humility. He seems like a guy that would be really easy to relate to as a player, so I appreciate that insight. Knew you had probably as good a look as anybody through this process. So, hey, Cole, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, and go Mammoth. We're excited. I don't want to jinx anything, but as you said, top of the wild card, and we're hoping for great things this spring.
Yeah, the runway's clear. They can get it done. It's going to take some work. I'd say over these next 17, they probably need to win 10 or 11 to really make sure they get in. But 8 or 9 would probably do it. So and the schedule favors them. So I'm expecting playoff hockey here in about a month, which is going to be really exciting for not only the organization but for our state. There's nothing like it.
Well, you probably haven't heard this, but there's preliminary talks of the Party Hounds playing the Plaza. So,
Okay.
so if that happens, Cole, you better be up there headbanging with the rest of the crew. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Cole. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
You too.
Cole Bagley, what a good guy. Does a great job of being inside and giving us up to the minute intel on the Mammoth.
You're going to be playing on the Plaza potentially?
Well, there's talks in the works. Yes,
All
let's just put
right.
it that way. My
Party
people,
Hounds
my
are
people,
always in
I was
play.
saying, anybody who's never seen the Party Hounds and Tim in his element as their front man, you're missing out.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. If you don't know the history of it, over 40 years. We met in Dallas, Texas, all in high school.
Okay.
And we've just gone forward. And we obviously there were many years where we were raising families and it was dormant. It wasn't the one thing on our, but as we've gotten older, it's become more of a priority. We play 3 or 4 gigs a year. And this year we're inked at BYU Notre Dame. So we're playing that one.
Look
Well,
at you
if you're inked to do it, then it's official.
Yeah, that one's official. I can talk about it.
Okay.
But this other one, I can just say Hockey Ops talking to my people.
Ah, okay.
That's when you know you've made it, when they're officially talking to your people.
Yeah.
Well-
have them talk to my people.
Yeah. Well, yes, I was very encouraged. I felt like it was a step in the right direction, but I digress. I love hockey. It's fun.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I learned hockey playing PlayStation or, I learned the rules and how to play hockey on one of those stupid little games.
That's how I've been learning. My son plays NHL 25. I think it's the edition we've got at my house, and I play alongside him. That's how I've kind of learned what the whole, just how the game operates, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love, obviously when they get numbers advantages and the way they attack. So it's fun to watch. And it's been so well received here. I think people love it. And tickets are hot. So continue to support those Mammoth. That would be fun to see them in the playoffs.
All right. So yeah, I just want to see playoffs. The Stanley Cup playoffs, I've seen them for years. Obviously just watching the NHL, but to have them here in Salt Lake City, all for it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're excited because on the docket today we have one of the best tweeters in the history of the world, and he also is a adequate color man for Greg Wrubell.
Adequate?
BYU. I'd just
Okay.
go adequate. He
Okay.
gets a little emotional. We'll talk to him about it. But we've got Mark Durant on the program coming up, so stay with us. More to talk about. KSL Sports Zone.
You're locked on to Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back to Scotty G and Friends. Jake Hatch, Tim McComb sitting in for Scotty G. If you want to go out and watch, we were just talking about the Utah Mammoth with Cole Bagley. Obviously, big news of them signing Nick Schmaltz to that long-term extension. What we've got tickets for you is to Win Tickets Wednesday. Caller 12 right now at 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-9663. You will win a pair of lower bowl seats. None of this upper bowl stuff. Lower bowl seats to watch the Utah Mammoth take on the Winnipeg Jets. That'll be April 14th at 7 o'clock at the Delta Center. Once again, be caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. All right, Timmy, we've got this up in the studio here, and it's the Mountain West Conference tournament. Scotty G is en route to Vegas. I think he might already be down there. He will be calling the Utah State Aggies in their first-round game, which they're awaiting the winner of Wyoming and UNLV, and based on how things are going right now, it looks like the Rebs are going to hold serve on their home court.
Imagine that. Imagine that. Good grief. That was one of the bigger frustrations. You put together these great years, and you go down there, and time after time for us, in the beginning, it was UNLV seemingly every time on their home floor. There was the obvious Camard incident.
Fair.
Where she took her flip-flop off and was whacking some guy. What they didn't say was the guy was basically traumatizing and taunting his kids. And, my kids still see Thomas and Mack and they get PTSD.
Like apprehensive about it.
Here's the problem. They serve hard liquor there.
They do. Yeah.
And, I can get beer, but you literally go up there to the Crown Station, have you dump you some petrol. And, of course, what are people going to do? They're going to be idiots.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about this is that I've always, and I went to some of these Mountain West Conference tournaments and whatnot, and when UNLV was getting towards the end of the tournament, if they were in the tournament title game and whatnot, all of a sudden the Thomas Mack is just full of red and Rebels. it's ingrained in your head. How is that never like legislated by the Mountain West? Be like, hey, this doesn't work.
Exactly. Well, because they're filling seats, right? They love it.
But
They absolutely love it. I got another. This is probably the best Thomas and Mack story I got was with Utah, and we're playing in the Thomas and Mack with Jackalary era team, and we had a Australian guard from the Institute played with Andrew Bogut and Patty Mills. His name's Stephen Way.
Okay.
And so Stephen was a freshman on that team, and we were in the game pretty closely. And we shouldn't have been. I mean, we were punching above our weight. So the game comes down to the end, and we make a couple plays, and it's tied. Mm-hmm. And they go down and miss, they go down and make a three. We come down, and Steven gets fouled on a three.
Okay.
And so they're lining the guys up to shoot the free throws, and out of the upper deck, I kid you not, I saw it come down. A glass bottle.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep. Glass beer bottle out of the upper deck, hits an usher in the head. And the usher goes down, and the medical team comes out. Mind you, there's like 0.1 seconds, and he's got to shoot 3 free throws as a freshman. So literally, this guy's laying on the floor. His head's cut open.
They split open, probably.
So they get him out of there. I mean, it's a 15-minute ordeal. And he stands up there, and he makes the first and makes the second and misses the third, and we lose.
Jeez.
But, you know, our weight was delayed just because they had to tend to a guy who'd gotten hit by a foreign object on the floor.
A glass bottle?
Welcome to Vegas. Yeah, so try that one on for size.
The conference tournaments are always just crazy because I actually have a really good friend that I'm not going to lie. If he has missed a conference tournament that involves BYU, he's a big BYU fan. Him and his dad. It's kind
one of your friends is?
Oh, shocking, I know. But
You're a big Hawaii guy.
They go to we go to the West Coast Conference tournament when BYU was in the West Coast Conference, Mountain West before that. I think even when he was young, they may have gone to some of these WAC tournaments. They have gone every year, and all they do is they go for the 3, 4, 5 days and watch every game, sun up to sundown. That's what they do. And I've always had mad respect for it because that's a lot of basketball to consider.
Well, you know who else is also doing that this week? Scotty Girard.
He is.
Talked with him briefly this morning to make sure the orders were clear of what we needed to do today. And he said, I'm headed over. I said, you're going to watch the games today? Now, that might be code. He's probably going to a matinee.
Is that what we're calling it? A matinee? Jeez. Is that what we're calling it? Really?
Well, you get in cheaper.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
Didn't know the matinee was like the cover story now.
It's like the early bird for the
early bird special.
The early bird special.
Yeah.
But Scotty's down there watching this game right now, and he's going to see real quickly that UNLV will be the opponent tomorrow. Yeah. And so what we just talked about, Utah State will face. And Calhoun knew the challenge going in, wasn't the most excited about it, but that's playoffs, that's matchups. You got to play who you play.
And by the way, it's always been the biggest sham to have to play UNLV.
Dude, I'm telling you.
UNLV. It has always been that way. It's just a joke.
We can't play it down the street or,
Let's say there's a thing called T-Mobile Arena right down the street that, is a world-class facility that is going to be home to.
It's got to be there where everything.
Well, I told Jake off air that the biggest reason is UNLV basically gives it to him.
Okay. Well,
right? Because it's actually a good business proposition because tournament shares are very valuable.
Sure, absolutely. And
so if they give them a deal and cut a little rent off and get in the tournament once in a while, funds a lot of deals. So business of sport.
Crazy. That'll be a 1:00 tip tomorrow.
That's
correct?
the other thing they do to you.
12:30 pregame.
Yeah. That's always what they do to you too. You win the league and you go down there and you play it. Now they're going to play UNLV at 1:00 in the afternoon after UNLV's already played 37 games on their home floor.
Does the rest versus play thing factor in?
It does a little bit.
Okay.
I think with the tournaments there's jitters.
Okay. I
think you see it often at state tournament. I did it, and it just first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, there's just jitters, right? Okay. And it's what team can get out of that quicker. That's kind of what I look for. And then there's teams that just come out. Teams that I've played on the floor tend to play a little more loose. Mm-hmm. So that's where that advantage is. The team coming in, like Utah State, will have jitters. They're defending the number one spot.
Yeah.
They're immediately tested by the home team. So yeah, it'll be a challenge. But I'll tell you what, if they can galvanize and do it, sets them up really good for the big tournament coming up here soon.
No doubt about that. Yeah, so that'll be a kind of a abbreviated edition of the Scotty G show, Scotty G and Friends, from noon to 12:30 tomorrow. 12:30 pregame, and then we'll obviously carry the game here on the KSL Sports Zone. All right, on the other side, we're going to come back. NFL free agency. It's actually, guys can actually sign now because the league year has finally begun. And the Baltimore Ravens have made themselves kind of the focal point of what's going on in the NFL in this free agency period. We'll get into that next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.